What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Hashtag Jump the Podcast. We've got a different type of episode today. I'm going to be answering your questions. About a year ago, I asked friends, I asked people on Facebook to send me questions that you would ask someone who is on a similar journey that you're on, or maybe a mentor of yours, or someone that is following the same dream that you have. Or questions that you have specifically for me. What are some things that you wanted to know about me and my journey? Some more questions about things that I've learned. And this is your opportunity to do that today. I'm going to be answering your questions right here on Hashtag Jump the Podcast. I'm going to have some help today from one half of McLean Media. Shauna McLean is here, and she's going to ask the questions that you sent me, and we're going to answer them right here today. You also can't see, but Tony McLean is here on the camera, so I just want to shout these two out. They've been very instrumental in helping with this podcast. They're a part of this team, and I hadn't had an opportunity to say that yet, so this is my opportunity now to say thank you, guys. I'm looking at y'all. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. They're in no specific order, but we're just going to get right to it. So just ask away.
So we've got one that says, how will I know if I'm going to be successful?
How will I know if I'm going to be successful? I think that success is something that is personal. It's not something that you compare. I'm getting to your answer, I promise. That you can compare to other people around you, first of all. I think it has to do with the things that you set out for yourself. You'll know if you're being successful if you're meeting all of the marks that you've set, all of your milestones. I know for me, starting out singing, I never had the desire to act. I never had the desire to perform, but I was trying to find ways to do it. So my goal was to put myself in every situation that I could. And I found myself going higher and higher, or setting higher levels, higher expectations for myself. I went from, just do any opportunity to what are the local community theaters in Little Rock, Arkansas, where I was living at the time. What are they doing? Then it went to what are the professional theaters in the area doing? Then it went to audition for the national tours, the Broadway shows. I always set my expectations higher. And the more success, or when I reached that level of success by doing the community theater shows that I wanted, and doing the professional shows that I wanted, and auditioning for the national tours or the Broadway productions that I wanted. That's how I gauged my success, because I was never a person, one, that wanted to do those things, and two, I never thought I would go that high. And so for me to put myself in that sort of space to, one, be afraid, be analyzed, be critiqued, it said a lot about my growth. And to me, that was a big indication of my success. So I feel that whatever milestones you've set for yourself in terms of your success, or what it looks like for you, once you're able to check those things off and go higher and higher and further down that list, I feel that's the way you're able to measure your success. What is it to you? It's totally personal. It won't look like what it looked like for me, or what it might look like for Shauna or Tony. It is specific to you, and you are the only person that will really know if you're truly successful or not.
All right. The next question is it worth the risk?
Is it worth the risk? I totally think it's worth the risk. Again, I can only speak from my vantage point. There are a lot of unknowns, and I don't like to, or I didn't like to throw myself into those situations. As I've said many times so far in this podcast, I'm a person that plans. I'm a person that likes to know what the outcomes are going to be. But you just never know. You never truly know. And so when you are doing the work that it takes to follow your dreams, you find yourself in many forks in the road. Sometimes you'll have to go this way or go this way. It's smooth sailing at some points, and then you get to a fork in the road. You make a decision, it's smooth or it's bumpy, but you get through it. And then there's another fork in the road. There's always these decisions to make, these risks to take, and you have to determine whether or not you want to do those things. Is it worth it? I found myself doing things that I never wanted to do. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be some big risk like quit your job and, live in a cardboard box. But there were certain things that I did that I said I never would do for the dream. I was moving to New York. We've talked about this a lot already in the podcast, but I said I didn't want to live in a certain part of Little Rock, really the outskirts of Little Rock, because I didn't want to have that long drive to get to work, because I was always late to work. I just was. I'm just that person. I'm not a morning person. But I moved out of my apartment because I wanted to save the year leading up to going to New York, and I ended up not staying directly in Little Rock. So that was a sacrifice that I make. That's another example. You go to sleep earlier, or you get up earlier, prepare earlier for your day in order to get to work, whether you're on time or late or not. That was a sacrifice for me, getting up super early every single day for a year just to make it to work on time, or it could be, quitting your job and moving somewhere. That was a big thing for me. I quit my job August of 2021 in order to live the dream full time, and I'd been on that job for 11 years. I never thought I would do it. That was a huge risk for me because I am always concerned with my safety, my security, my stability. How am I going to take care of myself? So the fact that I quit my job, had no clue what I was doing, no clue, absolutely no clue what was next for me. It was totally unlike me, but it was worth it. It's been worth it. And I knew that at the time it was very, very scary, but I knew that the benefits of me doing that and actually focusing more of my efforts into the arts, which is what I want to do for the rest of my life, I knew it would pay dividends down the road. Not to mean that it wasn't going to be rocky. That didn't mean that I was going to always feel safe and feel stable or know every single move that I was going to make, because I don't. I really, really don't. It's actually been very, very scary, but the outcomes from doing that and putting myself in different situations and really just opening myself up for things to happen for me have really, really pushed me along this journey. I think taking risks is very important when it comes to following your dreams, because playing it safe will keep you in your comfort zone. Playing it safe will not push you to go beyond what you don't even know you're capable of. So you have to push the envelope a lot of times. You have to go beyond. And even then, what's the worst thing that can happen? I had to train my mind in that. I think that we think situations are end of the world and you can't rebound from it. People don't want to have those situations because they don't want to rebound. They don't want to have to start over or pick up the pieces. But that's what a lot of following your dreams is. That's what a lot of being on this journey is. Sometimes you do have to start over. Sometimes you have to reevaluate and regroup. That's just a part of the process. And the more you become comfortable in doing that, the better off you'll be. So again, to answer your questions, I totally feel like it's worth the risk. I have changed in so many ways and become a person that I never thought I would be. And it's all been tailor-made towards this dream. It's been building me up and toughening my skin for what it takes to follow my specific dream. And when you are willing to take that risk, the same things will happen for you.
I absolutely agree. So this next question is tailored for you. The person asked, how did you deal with failure?
My perspective has actually changed when it comes to failure. My philosophy is you win or you learn. I don't necessarily believe in winning and losing and failing. I think that things happen and things don't go the way you want it to. I don't necessarily look at it as a failure. I just look at it as an opportunity to learn something, to learn how to be better the next time, to practice. Sometimes it's really just woodshedding, or that's what I call it. It's really going into like what any athlete would do. If you play basketball, you're going to be practicing your free throws and all that stuff. You're going to be putting yourself in the space to learn and to hone your craft, to hone your skills. That doesn't mean you're going to make every shot, but you're bettering yourself so that you can make every shot, or the likelihood of you making every shot more likely. So I won't necessarily say I believe in failure, but the way that I handle it is I think about what I did. And let me say this. I think it's very important to reevaluate anytime you're jumping or you're in a situation that doesn't go like you think it should. Reevaluate. What are your feelings about it? Really think about every single detail of that thing you did. How did it go? What was your position in it? What did you do? Did you do it the best that you could? What could you have done better the next time? What were the external forces against you that you had no control over? What were you feeling internally? I just really evaluate the situation, evaluate what happened, and decide how I feel about it, and you make a decision to move on, be better the next time. Sometimes you even develop a plan, a game plan to attack the next time to be better. Just really becoming self-aware of what your role was in the situation and the part you played in taking that step to follow your dreams. So again, I wouldn't necessarily say failure is a thing to me. There was a time when it was, and I did feel that way, but it's about changing that negative thought, that stinking thinking that we talked about getting rid of. It's all about how you look at it. Handling failure, I'll say, is something that you just really, really just think about it. Just think about that situation, and it's building up your mindset. It's feeding your mind whatever your perspective is on it. So I think it's important to analyze that and move on from it. Prepare better the next time, and just look at it as a learning and not a failure.
Listen, I was just going to say that. Was it a failure or was it a lesson?
It was a lesson. I think
Yes,
it's always a
yes.
lesson. It's always a lesson. It's always a learning, and I keep encountering things all the time that remind me of that. It's all about learning something so that you are better the next time. You may not feel like it in the moment, and it sucks. It does feel bad, but you have no idea how much you are strengthening yourself for the journey and strengthening yourself for that next time. It's never a failure. You're just getting yourself ready for the next one and the next one and the next one. And that's just how I like to look at it.
Definitely big facts. What would you go back and tell yourself 5 to 10 years ago? They're coming for you now. They want to know what you would do.
Yeah. 5 to 10 years ago, I would tell myself that there are opportunities for you out there. There are things for you to do. There is an audience for you, and you got to do the work. You can't expect for things to just fall in your lap without having paid your dues, without having put in the work, without having sacrificed, without having given the best of you. And once you've done all of that, just get ready for the doors to open. Get ready for opportunities to come. But none of that comes until you've done the very best that you can do. And to not be afraid, Fear will keep you paralyzed. Fear will keep you right where you are if you don't find a way to handle it, to deal with it. And that's not where you want to be. And you've been that way and in that place for years already. Just go for it. Afraid or not, just go for it. Do the best you can. Start where you are and make it happen.
Gotcha. What are the biggest mistakes you see people make that have similar dreams?
For me, in the arts, and when I say arts, I mean anything artistic, but I'm always going to come from the standpoint of a singer, actor, especially for singers. I remember when I first got in voice lessons years and years and years ago. And I didn't get into voice lessons because I couldn't sing, but I got into voice lessons because I knew that I wanted to be able to sustain for whatever the journey was for me, because I was going to use my voice a lot. That was my intention. I thought things would come a lot quicker than what I expected. Not that I expected to just be like, oh, I got it, right now, today, or even the next week, or even the next month. But being in voice lessons, if you're a singer and you're watching this and you've never been in voice lessons, it's one of the most vulnerable things I have ever experienced in my life. Because you go into a situation where, for me, you don't know the voice teacher or coach. You're setting yourself up for them to hear you, but also to give constructive criticism and feedback on how you sound. And even if they're saying it the best way that they can possible, you take offense to that sometimes, or at least I did, because unlike picking up an instrument and playing, or playing the piano or just something. The voice is something that is more personal because it really is you. I think people can sound alike on different instruments in terms of how they play or how it sounds, but your voice is not like any other person's voice, and it's so personal to you that it's almost as if they're taking a shot at you. That's not what they're doing, which is why it's so important, again, to train your mind to think differently, to have a mindset ready to receive constructive criticism, ready to learn, ready to be a student, but also ready to keep at bay those negative thoughts. It was so personal, and there were times I felt like this is not what's going to happen for me. It's not. And I think I even told my voice coach one day, I looked at him and I said, I don't think this is for me. I remember saying that specifically. There were days I went home very, very defeated, and you have to put that work in. A lot of times it's not going to come overnight. It's not going to come that next month. I know for sure, if I could think about the timeline, it took about 3 years for me to really grasp the concepts that my teacher was teaching me in those voice lessons and really feel like I could manage my voice just at the drop of a dime. 3 years consistently. I was going into voice lessons sometimes twice a week, but definitely once a week for 3 years. I had just moved to Little Rock when I'd been there about a few months when I got in voice lessons, but I had nowhere to sing unless I was going back home to Texarkana to sing at church. So I really went in there sometimes, and I even told him, I said, I feel like I'm just singing for nothing. I have nowhere to really exercise this gift aside from singing and practicing in here, singing and practicing at home. But I didn't know what was coming down the road. I didn't know that I would be a performer like this and in musical theater and sometimes having to sing, multiple times a day or do 7 shows a week. I had no idea I was preparing myself for that. And so I was in there for years working on my craft, feeling like I was spinning my wheels, also still feeling like I'm not really getting what I'm supposed to be getting. I'm not learning it. I just don't have it. But putting in that work, again, I know I'm talking and sort of rambling, but I wanted to say all of that. But I think a lot of us aren't willing to put in the work and put in the time. We think that because we do something well already, that it should come to us overnight, that level of success, or to just move higher and higher, on the ladder, when we really haven't done anything to hone our gifting and perfect it and to really do what we do in excellence. I think a lot of singers fall into that. We want things overnight. You may not say it, but again, I feel like we think that it's supposed to come a lot quicker than it should, but it doesn't. And I find that this is something that I will always be working on. I will always be working on the voice. I will always be in some sort of class to learn. So one thing that I have found that people that do what I want to do fall into is that we're not willing to put in the work. And it's sad because that is a very, very big part of the journey, because you will always be doing the work. As I've said before in previous episodes, you will never not be doing the work. And a lot of times it takes time. So we're just not always ready to put in the work and wait. And we have to be very patient.
So these next 3 are coming for you, okay?
Okay.
How did you push through the fear of the dream not becoming the reality?
I had to get out of my head. I still feel like I'm in my head a lot. But that's something that I've learned to manage. And sometimes it doesn't affect me. Sometimes it does. But it's me doing the daily work necessary to follow my dreams and to be successful at it and to be able to sustain. This is the continuous work that I'm doing. I just push past it. I look for the opportunities to learn. And I'm the biggest hype man of myself. I will sit in a car before an audition or before I'm about to do something that terrifies me. I will hype myself up. I will give myself a pep talk. And I mean audibly speak to myself in order to keep that fear at bay and to say, this is a learning. This is an experience that you're going to learn from. There is something in this. That's one thing I always tell myself. There is something in this for you to learn. And this is a success either way. This isn't a failure. This is a success either way, which is why we cannot be so attached to outcomes. You just can't, because they are crushing. A lot of times they can be. You have to shift your focus. It's funny, but I'm going to say a lot of the same things over and over and over again. And I feel like that's okay, because these are things that I want you to get. These are things that I want you to understand. This is a part of doing the work. You know, I spend more time probably than what I thought and what you will think once you're actually putting these things into practice, preparing my mind for the journey. That's a big deal. That's a very, very big deal. And you can't just walk into any situation, you know, just free to the wind. You should go into it with that aspect, but only go into it with that mindset, but only after you've done the work and prepared yourself the best way you can. I think that's the only way you can go into it, you know, lighthearted. You know, I don't get worried about a test in school when I was in school if I studied the night before. You know, if I didn't study, it's, oh my gosh, are they going to ask this or they're going to ask this? But when you've had the study guide and you've looked at it and you've done your practice problems or whatever the subject is, or when you've really studied, given an effort to study, there's no reason for you to be afraid. So once you go into that situation, after having studied the best that you can and prepared yourself the best you could, there's nothing else for you to worry about. So I go into those situations where I may think about failure, but I don't let it keep me from doing what I know I'm supposed to do. You know, I hype myself up. I motivate myself the best way that I can, and I have fun with it. That's another thing. I used to be so deathly afraid getting in front of people to sing specifically. I can get in front of people and stand and talk and do whatever, but just because my gift and talent were on display, it was a frightening feeling, because it's like, what are they going to think? Are they going to think I'm bad, or this isn't going to be right, or I worked on this part in the song and I know I'm not doing it the best way that I could, and all these different things. Who wants to get in front of people doing what you love to do and be afraid to do it? You know, be grateful for the opportunity to do that thing that you love to do. Prepare the best that you can and just do it. Simple as that. Just prepare the best that you can, do it, and not even think about failure as an option, because as I've stated previously, many times in this episode alone, it's a learning. It's not a failure. It's a learning. So you're going to learn something either way, and you're going to win.
All right, next question. How do you find the balance of pursuing your dreams while paying the bills if the two aren't the same?
Ha! Y'all, if I don't know anything about anything else, this is the one. I worked a 9-to-5, and I did theater when I could on the side. You know, at first it was after work where I wasn't getting paid. It was a volunteer effort, community theater. So, you know, you're rehearsing after work and those sort of things. So it doesn't really interfere with the job. But once I started doing professional shows where I was required to be at work during the day and be at rehearsal during the day, as well as be at rehearsal at night or perform at night, it got crazy. Like, I was burning the midnight oil. I remember my first professional show, I literally got off work and drove to a town that was about 25 to 30 minutes away, went straight into rehearsals for that show, got out at about 10 o'clock, and then came home, got home about 10:30, still did all the things that I needed to do to get prepared for the next day, and got up and did it all over again the next day. I was exhausted. I remember one time I had my oven preheated on 475 because I was determined to meal prep because I didn't do it all week. I went to sleep with that oven ablaze and my chicken laid out on the counter all night. I was tired, y'all. It's about sacrifice. I had a goal. I had a vision. I knew what I wanted to do, and I wanted to do it so bad that I was willing to do whatever it took. So I spent my gas money to go to the city over, you know, to rehearse, because that's where the show was and that's where I needed to go. So I did that. I spent those long hours doing that rehearsal, and I sacrificed my sleep. I sacrificed my free time. It was not a fun time, except for when I got on stage, but I sacrificed my time. So it really, you have to find the balance. It was a lot during those times too, because that's the first time I realized that, you neglect your social life a lot of the times in terms of returning people's calls. There were times I couldn't call people back, a week till after they had originally called me. I just did not have the time to devote to anybody else, let alone myself. So there was a time I felt like I was just so separated from people just because I was in that grind mode, on that journey. And sometimes it's a very lonely time. It's a lot, but you just have to make the sacrifices. It's about having healthy boundaries with work and healthy boundaries with that thing that you love to do. Of course, you have to go to work because we all have to live, we have to eat, but have those boundaries, do everything that you can while you're there during the day, be as productive as you can. And if there's something that you need to do during the day that it pertains to your dream, make sure that it doesn't interfere into your productivity time for work. You have to discover the balance for yourself. It's really personal. It's really, really personal. That's another thing, a part of doing that work, because I've said before, it looks like what you need it to look like, what you want it to look like. And you have to figure out how to have those healthy boundaries for yourself. It's difficult. It's a little difficult, but it's not something that's impossible. And I think that once you're in the groove of working while also pursuing your passion and your purpose, you'll figure that out once you begin to analyze it a little bit more. How can I healthily, I don't even know if that's a word, how can I, in a healthy way, chase my dreams while also creating time for myself to decompress and relax, but also doing everything I need to do for work during the day. So it's your plan and outline to create. It's all up to you to figure that out. I personally can't tell you to do that. The only thing that I can for sure tell you is that it needs to be done. You have to do it in order for those boundaries. You have to do it in order for you to be productive and for you to have longevity in what you want to do. I can't specifically tell you what to do step by step because our journeys are not the same. What we do are not necessarily the same. And even if they are, the route to get there is totally different. There are some similarities, but it's totally different. The only thing that I can tell you is that you have to focus and figure out a way to have those healthy boundaries. It's just something that has to be done. You can't just burn the midnight oil every single day and overexert and overextend yourself. You have to put those boundaries into place, and it's up to you to figure out what they are.
I absolutely agree. So the next question is, how do you know when it's time to reframe the dream?
Well, I think you know that once you're meeting your milestones or you're doing the things it takes to meet each one of those milestones, and you're not necessarily getting the results that you want. You sort of have to fine tune them. What can I do differently? Why am I getting the results that I'm getting? Is there something that I haven't thought about? Is there another way I can look at this? Is there something more that I need to do? Do I need to scale back? I think that it comes when the results that you may not expect to get are what you're getting. I feel like after you do a certain thing for so long, you need to analyze what can I do differently. Even if you are succeeding, I think, at what you're doing, you should still analyze, how can I continue this sort of upward mobility that I have? How can I continue to be successful? Is there something that I can do differently just so that I'm not stuck doing the same things? How can I take this to another level? So I think just analyzing the outcomes that you're getting, again, don't be so attached to them that you're hanging your hat of, oh, I'm being successful, or, oh, I'm failing on those things. Just analyze them and see where you are. I'm all about self-awareness. So I like to know if I can't necessarily control the situation like I tend to want to do, I always want to be aware of my feelings, my thoughts toward it. Am I doing the very best that I can do? Am I not doing so well? I want to know exactly what I'm doing, the part that I'm playing in it, and how it affects the milestones that I have. How is my input affecting the output? How are those things being affected by what I'm doing? So I think it's just about analyzing the outcomes, analyzing what you're getting from the effort that you're putting into those daily tasks and goals that you are trying to accomplish each day that get you one step closer to following your dreams. So just continue to do the things that you're doing, but be very aware of the outcomes that you're getting so that you'll know if you need to tweak something along the way.
All right, so I'm going to combine two questions because they're very similar.
Okay.
It says, how do you handle the days when you're feeling discouraged, and how did you get over it?
I've definitely had many days like that. I think about the dream. Jennifer Lewis, the actress, everybody knows who she is. She plays everybody's mama on some show or some movie in Black Hollywood. And she's said something a few times before. And I actually love how she talks because she speaks metaphorically. So she says a lot of the same things in different interviews, and she says them over and over again, and I find myself thinking about them. She said one time, it was the dream that sustained me. So those times that she was down on herself, or she was not succeeding. She's also bipolar, so I know she talks about when she was manic sometimes. It was the dream that sustained her. It kept her from really, I think she said, destroying her life and destroying her, her instrument, her voice, and the talents that she has. That the dream kept her going to classes. It kept her in the groove of learning and forever being a student. And I feel the same way. Anytime I'm ever down on myself, I always think about, what is it that you want? And knowing that if I stop right now, I'll never get it. And that if I do stop today, what I want could have been right around the corner. It could have been tomorrow. It could have been the next day. It could have been the next week. It could have been the next month. You just never know, but you'll never get to it if you stop. And I think that when we are discouraged, those thoughts come in our minds. You think about quitting, sometimes you think, like I said earlier, I thought about maybe this wasn't supposed to be for me. Maybe it's not my journey to be a singer or a performer. Maybe that's not my purpose in life, but I've never stopped. There were times when I decided to, maybe take a break for a little bit, but you just never stop. You can't allow those feelings to take you over. So when you are discouraged, find ways to take a break from it. Don't not feel those feelings. I think that it's important to feel how you're feeling. Give yourself space and time to feel it, but also know when it's time to move on. I'll give myself about a day. I'll give myself a day to pout, do whatever I want to do, get those feelings out. But when I wake up the next morning, it's time to do something different. That was all yesterday. It's time to move forward, and it's time to pick that mantle up again and run the race, So again, I think that that's personal to you. How do you, in finding ways to take a break, how do you relax? Find ways to take your mind off of it, regroup. Well, you're asking me personally. So, do things that give me peace. That's what I do. I do things that bring me peace. And I also keep those thoughts, like I said, of the journey at the forefront of my mind, what it's going to feel like when I get there. I mean, I don't know, but just the imagining of the moment I hit that marker does so much for me. A place that I really feel that is when I'm on the treadmill and I got my music going. If it's the right song, I'm thinking about my dreams. I'm so laser focused on it that it keeps me running faster. It keeps me moving forward. I actually hit a second wind once I really ramp up those thoughts about my dream and achievement and meeting the goals that I've set for myself. I'm so inspired by that it doesn't keep me in that space of discouragement for a very long time. But there are moments where it does, and it happens, and I'll take a day, and I'd be lying if sometimes I didn't have to take two. But beyond that second day, I get up. I get up and I keep putting one foot in front of the other and do what it is that I've set out to do, because it's important to do that. Your dreams depend on it.
This next one says, how important is social networking and having connections?
I think social networking and having connections is very important. I feel that we're always a student, or if you're someone who has goals and dreams and you want to be better than you are the day before, I feel that you need to always be in a place of being the student. You're never at a spot where you're not learning. And I think it's important to find and associate yourself with people that are doing the things that you want to do, especially on this journey of being an actor. I have many friends who have been doing it longer than I have. Some are older, some are younger, and I reach out to them. I have questions that I ask them, and they have no problem being a sounding board for me and giving me advice or things to think about. And I think that it's important to have those friends or people that you look up to, or even if you can identify someone as a mentor, if someone can adopt you as a mentee, I think it's very important because it gives you an inside look, into the life of someone or many people that are doing what it is that you love to do, and the personal details, the specifics of their journey and things that you may not have encountered yet or things that you didn't think about. So I think it's very important to have those relationships and to network socially and to have those connections. You also never know who can provide you opportunities to do what it is that you love to do. You never know who someone knows. And so it's very important to foster those genuine connections and relationships, because you learn by doing that as well. It's not necessarily the on-the-job training for you, but it gives you perspective and it gives you a certain look into the life of someone who's been there and done that. And I think that that's something that's very important. So whenever you find someone that's willing to allow you to sit at their feet, if you will, and to glean knowledge from them, it's always a good opportunity to do that. So I think it's very important to have social connections and networks, especially with those who are doing that very thing that you want to do.
In lieu of that question, what networking skills have you developed over this time period?
I'll say this. I think that depending on what it is that you want to do and your personality, there are certain skills that you might have to acquire. I'm a homebody. I love people, though. I'm what you would call an extroverted introvert. So I can be social. I have no problem being social when I want to be social, when it's required for me to be social. But there are times when I'm just not feeling like doing it. There are times I just don't. And I feel like that's a skill that I had to require. Sometimes you have to be on. You just have to be. And you don't want to be, I don't want to say not being yourself, but being that part of you that's not really conducive for that moment. You know what I'm saying? Conducive to what you're trying to do in that specific moment in time. So it's taught me how to, I guess, be a chameleon and change up in different situations. Again, not being inauthentic and not being who I am, but knowing how to pivot, knowing how to move differently in different types of situations around different people. Sometimes your vocabulary might have to be a little bit different. We as Black people have to do that all the time. We we just do. I think and not that no one else has to do it. I just know that we're really, really, really good at the change up because we have to be. That's just an example of that. You just have to be able to change up in certain situations and be ready when called upon. So I think that's a good networking skill, just to be open and available to what's happening to the group of people, recognize their needs and what they want as it relates to what you're offering, and how it can be received the best way.
Introvert, extrovert individual here in the room, okay? I understand when we are not replenished by people. That is not our thing.
Yeah.
But in society, we have to be social. Mm-hmm. So yeah, turning it on when you need to, and when you don't have to, just turning it off. It's like a light switch.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Well, then, like I said of the last question, what's the importance of having those networks? Because that is so important. You have to know how to have them. You know, it's one thing to recognize the people that can help you, but you have to maintain those relationships. You have to maintain those connections. And again, it's not about being fake or phony. It's about being yourself, but also knowing that sometimes you have to get out of that shell, get out of that comfort zone. You just do. You have to up your wattage a little bit, you know?
This next question says, what is something you wish you would have known before you started the journey?
I would have liked to know that it's impossible for me to fail. It's impossible for me to fail when I'm giving the best of myself, when I'm doing what my heart tells me to do, when I am following my passion towards my purpose, that I will never fail. I think that I looked at it like that a lot of times, looking at it from the lens of either you win or you lose, you know, and it's important to not do that, you know, for longevity's sake, because you'll be thinking those thoughts a lot. So I would have liked to have known that from the jump, that it's impossible for me to fail. And I think that if I had known that from jump, I won't say that I might necessarily be, you know, a little further along on the journey, because you just never know. And I'm not a person that likes to be, well, if this, or, you know, hypothetical and that sort of situation. I just feel like it's pointless to me to have those moments. That's just me. I'm not knocking what you do. But if I had known that, I think I might have been a little bit more motivated to go into those scary places and to do those things that gave me pause and intimidated me. You know, I would have been more apt to tackle them like I am now. You know, I'm looking for the next thing, you know, not that I'm not afraid or that I don't have, you know, some qualms or doubts about it, but I don't go into it like that anymore. I look at it as a learning experience and knowing that I'm going to come out on top no matter what the outcome is, you know. So I wish I had known that from the very beginning.
Listen, I absolutely agree with your answer. I have adopted the notion now, if it makes me nervous, run towards it. Mm-hmm. So I absolutely agree. So the next question we have is, how do you deal with friendships? How do you deal with friendship, family, relationships that may need to be removed during your journey? Because, child, everybody can't come with y'all, right?
Sometimes when you lose people along the way, you know, it's cliche, and I think you just said it, but I don't know if you did. But everybody can't go. It's true. It really is true. But I think that when we think about that, we think that, oh, somebody did something, or somebody was mean, or somebody, you know, just did something, you know, in order to warrant you letting them go. But sometimes the dreams that you have and the journey that you on pull you away from those people. It's not that they did something. It's not that you did something. It's just that you're moving a little differently now. You know, your focus and your priorities are different. And sometimes the time needed and required to keep certain relationships and friendships, you just don't have them, you know, and before you know it, you've drifted further and further apart from people, from family members, and that's okay. You know, if it is one of those cases though, where you have to cut somebody off, I feel like you do it in love. I know people, and this isn't to tell you what to do or what not to do, but I think a lot of people feel like you don't owe people explanations, and to a degree you don't. But I feel like when you are truly in a relationship, whether that's a friendship or as a romantic relationship or just a really, really good friend, even a business relationship, if you care about someone and you have a certain level of respect, I feel like you should have a conversation. You know, say, hey, my time is going to be required of me a lot more to accomplish this goal. And this may cause some friction or tension, or we may just not have time to hang out, but I just want you to be aware of this. Or even if it's something that someone has brought to you and they're having a conversation with you about it, you know, you let them know that. And there's always love there, I think, in those situations. At least for me it is. I may not talk to you every single day, but I've learned to not take those things personally, because I think I did a lot of that when those relationships sort of fell by the wayside because I may have gotten busy or, just started moving differently than normal, and it's life, it happens, but it's okay. It's really okay. Learn to not take those things personally, have a talk if you're able to talk with that person. But sometimes if there are people that are distractions and they continue to be distractions and you've done all you can to have a conversation or sort of get on the same page, sometimes you do just have to cut things off at the head, but I think that's a last resort, sort of solution. I just feel like you need to have a conversation if you can, and don't take it personal. Again, don't take it personal. Don't think that there's no love there anymore. It just, I just feel like you're just moving differently, and that's what happens on the journey. They say it's lonely at the top, and I feel like that is a true statement, but sometimes when you are on certain journeys, you will walk alone. When you're doing certain things, you will have to walk alone. I will say that getting closer to my dreams and doing the things necessary to do them, I've had some lonely moments. I feel like there are times when I've been the only person that really, really understood it, or there was someone around me who totally didn't get it. And I had to really get to a place with those feelings I was having and come to terms with the way things were, even with having close friends that I might feel like I could have talked to. Sometimes I didn't because I just wasn't sure. But I feel like there are a lot of moments where you're going to have to come to grips with things on your own. And when you have to let those friends and family members go, it's okay. It's okay. It's something that has to happen, and it's something that's oftentimes very, very necessary for you on your journey. So.
And I love the fact that you said it's okay, because it is.
Yeah.
Like, everybody grows and develops at different paces, and sometimes you not like you outgrow, but the pace that you are growing may not be the pace that somebody else is. Yes. And it's okay. You still love that person. At some point in life, maybe things will line up again. Mm-hmm. I completely agree with that. So the next question is, how do you stay consistent and how do you find balance? You, sir, you.
Me. Well, you got to hold yourself accountable. I think the way to stay consistent is to find a way to hold yourself accountable. I think that I mentioned that as well in a previous episode. Find ways to give yourself accountability, create timelines, create deadlines, have accountability partners. Accountability partners, I won't say that it doesn't work. It doesn't work specifically for me, but I know that if you are held accountable to someone, or someone is holding you accountable for the things that you say, that it does work for some people. I'm a person that's very, very self-motivated. So if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, or I'm going to make sure I'm putting in the effort to do it. That's just how I've always been. I'm in competition with myself, and you have to find ways, especially if you don't have people to hold you accountable, you have to find ways to keep yourself on track and to make sure that you're meeting the goals and milestones that you've set for yourself for whatever your journey is, whatever your dream is. All of this is so personal. That's the thing. These questions, I can give answers for me, but a lot of times there's an element where you have to figure out what works for you. It won't be the exact specifics of what I'm doing. And maybe there is something that works for you, but I can't give you anything definitively that will work for you. It's about figuring out different options, by listening to what I'm saying, if it's something that, interests you, but also figuring out what really is going to work for you. But again, finding balance is something that is sort of like trial and error, in my opinion. You just have to get in a routine. I think once I got in a routine of doing things daily or doing things weekly that helped further my dream or push me along that journey, I began to find a pacing. I began to find a rhythm. I began to find moments where, okay, now it's time for you to pull back and you need to chill out, you need to relax, you need to do something different. It all comes with you really executing those steps in that journey. Figure out the moments when you need balance, figure out when you've done too much, or figure out those moments when you know you're tired or exhausted, those moments when you just don't have any more to give, and finding those ways to keep from falling into those spots too often, if that makes sense. You don't want to always push yourself to the limit. I just said that earlier about burning the midnight oil, burning the candle at both ends. You don't want to always push and push and push yourself. Definitely push yourself, but not to the point of depletion all the time. You want to recognize those moments of, we need to scale back, we need to have a rest, we need to have a break. Having that balance of work and life and even social, it's very important to recognize those things. So it's all personal to you and what it is that you're doing. And it's something that comes with just, I think, being very self-aware and self-reflection.
What is your go-to activity when you just want to get your mind off things?
Sleep. Yeah. It's it's not always a good thing, I guess, to some, but if I want to take a break, the best thing for me to do is go lay down. It gives me an opportunity to just breathe, focus on my breathing. To me, sleep or laying down is my yoga. And actually, when I say go to sleep, I really just mean lay down and breathe, because I almost never go to sleep. I just use that as an opportunity to clear my mind, not think about what I just did, not think about what I gotta do. Just be one with myself and breathe. I don't think that we realize how relaxing it is to just breathe. And I mean, sometimes I won't lay in the bed. I will lay on the floor, on my stomach or on my back or whatever, and just focus on breathing, getting in a quiet space and breathing. And it just helps me to decompress. It helps me to relax, and it gives me the peace that I need for the moment. And it allows me to get rid of all that stress and get rid of everything that I'm carrying, so that I can get back up the next day or whenever I'm going to, start doing things again, get back up and do things better, but not having all of that, that clutter in my mind and in my body. So just breathing, just laying down and breathing.
What do you do in the meantime outside of your art?
I like to travel. I like to eat. Those are the things that really bring me joy. Like, I'm very, very simple. So outside of the arts, really spending time with my friends and family, really living the best life that I can, living the best life that I can. And to me, that's all centered around my family, focused on the things that I love to do, like I said, which are travel and eating and that's success to me. If I have time to devote to all of those things, in addition to time to focus on my dreams and the journey, I think I'm being pretty successful. But yeah, just relaxing. That's it. I'm a simple guy. Reading. Yeah, that's really it for me. Thank you guys for watching another episode of #Jump the podcast. Keep those questions coming in. I'll answer them on social media. And who knows, we might even have another Q&A session here on the show. You can send a DM to @JumpPodcast on Instagram, or email your questions to #JumpPodcast@gmail.com. We'll see you next time. Hey guys, please make sure to follow, like, subscribe, comment, and share all things #Jump the podcast.